Hi everybody, today we are going to be learning how to make an abacus at home. So here are the supplies you'll need. The first one is masking tape or some kind of tape. Second one is some string. I'm using dual heavy duty string, but any kind of string or yarn may work. You'll need some beads. And they'll need to have a hole in it. You can use any kind of beads. You can use Cheerios, Fruit Loops, anything you have at home that's round and has a hole through to the other side. You also need a pair of scissors and some cardboard. You could also use cereal box cardboard. I found it easier to use this regular box cardboard. It's a little stiffer. Now, it's optional to use a piece of fabric if you have some, but this is just optional. So first what you're going to do is you're going to cut a cardboard piece out into a rectangle. The size will depend on the size of your beads, so you may have to play with this a little bit. So when you cut it into a rectangle, you next then want to get your string. And then we're going to make sure it comes past the cardboard on each side a little, because it will be wrapped around and attached to the back. Do a little bit extra. Cut it. Now, depending on the size abacus you want, you can do 2 lines of beads or 3 lines of beads. So for this example, I'm going to be doing 2 lines of beads. The only difference with this is how high you're wanting to count up to. If you're counting into the hundreds, you'll want to use the 3. But for this instance, 2 will work. Alright, so now we have our rectangle and our string and our beads. Next, you're going to want to cut 2 little slits into each side of your longest part of your rectangle. So you follow the long piece and you have these 2 short slides, and it cuts into there, about a centimeter in. Right. Then you're going to want to put the string into this slit. I find that it helps to make a knot onto this side depending on how big your string is, so that when you run it through it gets caught on there. Do the same with this side. This is the second piece of string. I'm going to do the same thing, put the string through the slit on one side, and you're going to pull until it catches. Just helps keep the string tight. Alright, then you're going to start threading your beads on, and you're going to want 9 beads per string. And this is so that when the kids are counting, they count 1 through 9, and then 10 will start on the next row of beads. That's how the abacus is used. So you're only going to have 9 per row. And now any size beads can work for this. I'm using jewelry beads from a piece of old jewelry that I found, and I just cut the bracelet up and used it for this activity, but you can use easily Cheerios, Fruit Loops, anything you have at home. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 1 more. 9. You can even use these with large kids' toys. You'll just need a bigger square. You can even use a tissue box. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so here we have 9. So I'm going to slide this into the other notch until it's nice and tight. We'll do this side as well. You can use a tissue box as your abacus base, and you can do larger balls or any shapes you have around the house that can be threaded through, like ping pong balls. Would be easier if somebody is having trouble with the dexterity in their hands using these little beads. Something bigger like a ping pong ball can totally work. If you have a toddler who's just learning how to count, you could even use larger balls that they have at home, something they're already familiar with, that can be threaded on, because it's the same concept as just learning how to count using these beads. 7, 8, 9. Okay, I have 9 on that side as well. And to pull it through. It's nice and tight. Now you can either tie this back here like this, or you can, either way, depending on what type you're using. I tend to use Scotch tape to make it as tight as possible. And pull through, and then taping it onto this back part here. Tight, hold it, and taping it. And typing this side down. I find that it works better to use this more rigid cardboard, because when I use the cereal box, this back part bent a lot, and it's very hard to get my beads all tightened, but it'll still work. Alright, so here, I'm going to tighten this one, make sure it's really tight. Let's see. Tape on this side. Okay. Now, what you'll notice on this is that the beads, you're going to push them all to one side. Now, they do tend to slide depending on what type of backing you're using. This one's pretty rigid, so the beads tend to stick when I move them, but sometimes they'll slide back. So what helps with this is if you have fabric, you can lay the fabric underneath or glue it onto the top here before you do your cuts. And I've noticed that with some kids that this works a little easier, because then it creates some resistance when the beads are slid. So when you slide them, they don't tend to slide as much. But you have to play around with that, with what works for you and what works in your house. So here's the abacus. And what the kids will do is they will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then to signal 10, there's 1 bead in the 10 spot and 0 beads here. So 10 is 1, 0. And then they will do 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And for 20, bring it back down. There's 2 here and 0 there. So that's how you do the abacus at home. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and good luck with your abacus projects.